How are you? Hey, I'm doing fine, thank you. You can sit anywhere. I have to go over there.
Okay.
It's not something that I'm excited to do. So we do have a student who went to the school. We should have a nice reader thing. And I think maybe a couple of elementary school people have to come to school because it is, I think, totally different than you really dressed up. And if you have things like the cards or the memory books that they gave you, anything like that, I don't know where all that is. Do you have siblings who like because I thought if I could collect, I've collected little bits and pieces along the way, but I thought maybe I'd make a real effort to see, what I could find. Pictures, of my families.
What was your relative's name that went to school there? What was your relative's name that went to school at Great Western? Violet Gray. Violet Gray.
Well, Violet Boy. It was Violet Boy.
Violet Gray?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. This is, she would have been Nancy Wright when she went to school. A bunch of her siblings went there too. My dad did.
That's my mom. Violet's mom.
Oh, Violet's your mom.
Right next to AEP, I live there now.
I think it's 2 generations that have been to the Great Western. See, I know the Carpenters. I'm trying to think, but his father went there.
So you lived there a long time then, if your mom lived there, you lived there a long
Well, I
time?
grew up there, got married, and kids, and then my dad passed away. Dad passed away.
Yes.
Yeah, I've lost my dad too, because my parents at one time lived at the Carson for Friends Church. And then they switched and they ended up on Pine Lane. They lived there, Georgia Bureau. And then my uncle Bus and what was Grace, Bus and Grace lived in a little house on the church, right in front where like the church parking lot is now. They had a little house there.
Boy,
It was the moments
CE.
that only and see, that's what I'm trying
Granddad grew up there. There was, what, 3 houses? Right there. Church parking lot.
given to the school.
And then,
Then it was granted.
For their school, but there was a school on the other side of the road in 1835. So, and I've been working with the engineer and the.
it's where like Aunt Danny's or Wendy's is now.
But we
Back
need
then
to
we used to
dig
have a little store
harder
there.
to see who, because
So, but,
sometimes
you know,
it's not,
the church
it's
just
not
taken
the
out.
one's family.
Yeah.
It's another.
Yeah, but there was just a short, like 3 or 4 houses
Marriage
on that side. Yeah. I found that interesting. Somebody that I went out there and some would do. And I called them to bring that over the hill because whoever's living so to determine the difference, they would bring it over the hill.
Yeah. Well, that was the photography right next to the state farm managers. That And then, of course, because I haven't seen the one out there, does it have the scallopy thing on the porches? Yeah. See, and then eventually, then they tore all that down. Or what is it?
Right across from the church on the other side.
Yeah. There was a woman that lived in the house because her parents, her father was the farmer.
Oh, Pete Road. Well, Pete lived on the other side of the church. I'm talking across the board. Yeah.
And I found it one time, because he told me, I'm like, 10 years ago. And I was asking about it. So I said, well, it was there, but it's just a prior action. To even just find it. And I don't know on the other side. Yeah. I was down here and I saw it, but that was like, that's 15, 20 years ago. Oh, yes, it's really bright. And so we have to go to the shoppers or whatever. Yeah. And I'm just gonna have that search for no. So, take it. Okay. Yeah, there we go. You're not too impressed by that. What I was going to suggest to you that if you wanted to say, if you know someone join us, if you'd like to do that, you do that a lot? Okay. Good job. Oh, nice. That way Yes. Do they have any music or just whenever they're ready? Okay. Yeah, because I did this, I didn't plan for music. I wish I had done the words, but. Yeah. So you're practicing it, but I don't think, there were no words on that word. It's just the music, yeah. But that's okay. Not. I don't know, I just introduce you. Perfect. And then I've got the Grace's name, but I also have checkers.
Yes. How are you doing? I'm okay.
Are you you're the videographer or what are you?
It's streaming live right now, actually.
Good Lord, I hope my face wasn't there for a minute. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, I saw this on someone's Facebook posting. How dumb is I think I'll change my Saturday plans. I was just going to stay home and do stuff, and I thought, no.
Yeah.
I've passed for years, as long as I've lived in Northern, I've passed that thing ages and ages and ages ago. And I thought, this is my chance to see inside these.
Sure, yeah.
That's what I was saying to the gentleman. I've never been here. I haven't been out this way in 20 years probably. She moved away for quite a while. I told them I just came back from out west. And when we were coming through Kansas on 70, in Colby, Kansas, there's a pioneer museum. And my main impetus for wanting to stop there was the sod house. And I've been wanting, and Kennedy did the play Hunters. It's been a long time ago. And I was in that with a whole lot of wonderful female ensemble cast kind of thing. And it was based on the whole pioneer. I got to see the side. They had and a one-room school. So it was cool to see a little church, a little chapel that they had all moved to that property. So, but yeah, it's fun to see inside these old rooms.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Down in Pocahontas County, here's where I have one too. Civil War town. Since, you know, I'm a retired teacher in the summer.
Sure.
Well, I'm curious to see the kids that go into
Yeah, I have no idea how to use that.
books somewhere at home. Talbot Madison Elementary School. They were celebrating. I was teaching. So I see the kids sitting.
Hi, how are you?
Right, sure.
You know,
Yeah.
being in theater, their costumes were.
I understand that. Yeah.
The art teacher made like out of these sheets of white paper, it was so cool. And some
Go, Joe, yes.
It never catches us. Hi, Ann. How are you? Congratulations on this. She works hard all the time.
Yeah, yeah. You'll have to come see, you were down at the building, but I think we made some changes since you brought
That's
your
right
students.
there.
No.
It's been 3-4 years ago now. Time goes so
I know,
fast.
I know. When you're having fun, yes. Anyway. And then we have some homeschoolers, they're supposed to leave town, but their parents are from the farmers market. I'm not sure they're gonna get back that time, but they will be out to play the games in the yard. So anyway. And I sent it to you, I was asking, so we'll just. Okay.
So when do you hope to be in Florida?
Remind me to have background music the next time we have a little events here. It seems kind of somber, and this is actually a very joyful occasion. For me it is anyway. My name is David Rohal. I'm the Dean of Campus and Community Relations here at Ohio University Eastern. For me, I'm very excited about the entire day. It starts here today. I don't know if you know what you read about when you came here. Will certainly be no more than an hour here, and then we have sort of a 2-hour open house over at the schoolhouse itself. I think most of you probably have been on site and know what that looks like. And that's kind of, you know, sort of free flowing. People come in and go and things like that. It's very relaxed. Today we do have a program, obviously. But again, I'm going to stress, please take some time and go over there. We'll have free ice cream available from Kirk's Ice Cream. So there's plenty of that. And some kettle corn. We'll, of course, open the schoolhouse for tours, and people can check that out. And there's a bigger site there, though. I mean, there's more to see. We've got multiple tents set up and so forth. We're going to have a Model T out. I haven't checked to make sure they're there, but they're supposed to be there. Horse and buggy and things like that. So a lot of stuff to see. It's going to be a lot of fun. So today we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of the schoolhouse, but Ann will point out, I'm sure she's ready to point out to you, it's actually 152 years now, but the 150th was supposed to occur during the pandemic. And one of the first people I met when I came to campus, I've only been here about a year and a half now, but one of the first people I met was Ann, who was fairly quickly came in and said, hey, we need to talk. And not only about the schoolhouse, but this anniversary, we have to get this done. And so it took some negotiation. I don't know how well you know working with academics, we don't do things quickly. So it took a little bit of time, but we were able to put this together. I'm excited to actually bring it to some conclusion. So we're gonna talk. Anne's gonna be sort of our big speaker today, and you know she always says it's not about me. It's not about me. Well, for me, Anne, it is about you, to be quite frank. But because she encapsulates and knows that history more than anybody else, I think, in the community. So I do want to spend some time today thanking her and honoring her for all that hard work, because I really want to stress something that's very important to me, and that is, has anybody here actually done any work on a structure before, like a living space or anything like this? You know what it takes to not only build something, but also maintain it. We have so much deferred maintenance on our campus. So for anyone to be able to maintain a structure like our schoolhouse for this many years is quite impressive. And it's not just about Anne, I know, but she's a big part of that, and that's why I can't separate it. So I knew right away, once she came into my office and said, we need to talk, that it was something bigger, and I'm glad that we can be part of that as Ohio University Eastern. So today what we're going to do, I'm going to introduce Melissa Reinbold in a moment, the incoming president of Questers, and then that's going to lead into Anne's big talk about the schoolhouse itself. We're going to have a performance after that from the Ohio Valley Christian Home Educators. And we're going to talk a little bit about the future of the site, which includes the schoolhouse, but also the bigger site that's also there. And I'll end and send this board over to anything else. So with all of that said, I'd like to invite up Melissa Reinbold to share some things from the perspective of the Questers, who again are a big part of helping the schoolhouse be what it is today.
Hello everyone, I'm glad you could be here this afternoon. I'm Melissa Reinbold, and I'm the incoming State of Ohio Questers President, and I am currently the National Trail Questers President of our chapter right here. The National Trail Questers is the group that funds, maintains, does everything with the Great Western School. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about International Questers. The Questers International is a nonprofit organization that was started in 1944 by a gal named Bess Bardens. She passed an antique store in her lunch one day and found a blue syrup pitcher in the window. She went in and she purchased it. She took it back and she placed it on the corner of her desk. During that day, and as time went on, many co-workers would stop to speak to her about it, and they expressed their desire to learn more about this syrup pitcher that she had on her desk. So with that, she launched an antiques discussion club, and from there, other local clubs formed, and other chapters, and it eventually became the Questers. These folks shared stories about their collections, about antiquities, about things that they may have owned, things that their family had passed down. In its over 75-year history, the Blue Syrup Pitcher has launched chapters in 48 states in the United States, Washington, D.C., and 2 Canadian provinces. It's grown from a small, loosely knit group of study clubs to international antiques and historical preservation organization with many chapters throughout. Our headquarters of Questers International it's in a building in Philadelphia. It is a building that was built in 1802. It's a 3-story federal style row house, and it needs continual preservation and restoration, as you can imagine. It is located at 210 South Point Street, and the house is at a very significant historical location in Philadelphia. With a strong desire to see that the best of American heritage is preserved for future generations, Questers seek to educate by research and study of antiques, and to donate funds to the preservation and restoration of artifacts, existing memorials, historic buildings, and landmarks for many educational purposes. Questers on a local level work on defined projects that are selected by each local chapter. And our chapter, of course, our project is the Great Western School. Questers also sponsor a graduate level scholarship at Columbia University, as well as a fellowship in Winter Thurr University of Delaware. Let me bring this story a little closer to home. We, the National Trail Questers, Chapter 348, have made it our mission to restore and preserve the Great Western School in order to bring history to life with interpretive programming for both students, children, and adults. It has taken a small army of Questers, many hours and many years to raise the funds to restore the Great Western. We have raised close to $300,000 to keep it alive and preserve it for generations to come. We have a group of enthusiastic and imaginative people who have sold slates off the roof while they were still on the roof and written countless grants to keep it alive. As I said before, Questers is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the study, conservation, and preservation of historical objects for the benefit of today and tomorrow. Questers, the people, are curious, enthusiastic, and imaginative, with a desire to learn new things. People who are excited by historical sites, antiques, and the study of past events that still resonate in our present lives and experiences. Our Questers' motto is, "It's fun to search and a joy to find." Once asked, "What is a Quester?" Bess Varden replied, "A Quester is socially well-adjusted, intelligent person who has curiosity, enthusiasm, imagination, and a good memory. For the power of the mind are memory and imagination. For without memory, we have no past. Without imagination, no future." And I think that is a great way to lead off to introduce our school mom of the Great Western School, and a vital person to the function of our Questers chapter, Anne Routine, because without the imagination and her creativity, all of this would not be possible. May I introduce Anne Routine?
Thank you, Melissa. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and honor, I think, the only person here who attended the Great Western School. Could I ask Nancy Wright Easton either wave or stand up, whatever you feel comfortable with? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there's you want to introduce yourself, please?
I'm Pat Gary.
Brune? Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Yes, so there are two, and there are, I believe, two more coming to the schoolhouse. So we hope that you all come and pick their brains, ask them questions about their life in the Western School. Unbeknownst to many of you, the story and history of a one-room school located along a portion of the National Road in section 27 of Richland Township in the vicinity east of Lloydsville actually began in 1835, when Joshua Hatcher leased 1/2 acre of property for 99 years to then 3 school directors for the sole purpose of the establishment of a school building. Archives tell us that it was a frame building which accommodated from 9 to 70 students and was utilized for 35 years. 2 teachers, sisters, Mary and Jeannie Castleman, were the last teachers in this frame building and were the first teachers at the Great Western School. 2 accounts have been found stating that the building was either abandoned or it burned, and either of these things could have occurred, prompting me to tell you the rest of the story. To my knowledge, at this time, there is no transfer of deed documented in the recorder's office indicating that George Lentz traded the hilly land upon which the Great Western School now stands with the fairly level half-acre of property where the frame building then stood across the National Road. It is reasonable to believe that the land across the highway was more conducive to farming than the steep hillside on which the present school is located. The number 3 school building, or as we know it today as the Great Western School, was built by the Clark Construction Company in 1870. It was used for 82 consecutive years, closing in 1952. It was the last active one-room school in Belmont County in Richland Township. This school stands on its original foundation. The building's hand-hewn bricks were made with the clay from the banks of the pond at the bottom of the hill from the school. School was considered modern because the exterior was made of brick and the windows had a semicircle at the top, which made it more challenging for the brick mason. There are actually 3 layers of brick which help support the attic and the roof beams. Documentation tells us that the trees in the schoolyard were cut in order to build the attic and roof supports. It was not until the roof was replaced in 2016 that this information was positively confirmed, for the roofing company workers discovered that it was difficult to pound nails into the rafters because the lumber must have been green when it was installed in the school. It's kind of amazing to think that until it was replaced in 2016, the slate roof had kept out the weather since the school was first built 146 years ago, if my arithmetic is correct. Just imagine how that heavy slate was transported from Vermont in 1870. I'm certain that part of the transport was made by train, and then either horses or oxen pulled the wagons loaded with slate to the construction site. The new roof is also made of Vermont slate. I wonder if it will last 146 years. The bell, rung when visitors arrive, is housed in the cupola and was cast by the J.B. Foote Company in Fredericktown, Ohio in 1880. It is assumed that the citizens of the township built and equipped the new building with the basic necessities until more funds were available to add the bell tower and the 200-pound-plus cast iron bell to the school. The ceiling had a layer of wallpaper under the tin ceiling, so we assumed the tin was not original to the building of the school. There are no records which indicate when these items might have been added to the school. If only the walls could talk, what stories we would be able to share. Prior to 1939-40, the school building sat above the National Road, or the Pike, to which it was commonly referred. 20+ feet of soil was added to make the road more level for cars, such as the Model T and Model A Fords, to traverse on the highway. The basic problem with these cars was that there was not a fuel pump for the gas tank, so as the vehicle progressed up the steep hill, the gasoline followed gravity to the back of the gas tank, thus causing the car to lose its fuel source and come to a halt. Upon hearing the sputtering of the car, school was dismissed, not officially, but the older boys would dash out of the building to either push the car up the rest of the hill or assist in turning the car around and letting the driver go in reverse, thus allowing the fuel to flow back to the front of the vehicle. It has been reported that class would resume shortly after the driver had successfully scaled the hill and was on his way to wherever he was destined. During the early 1900s, school attendance was not mandatory. Many families needed their children to assist at home or on the farm depending upon the weather and the need for labor. Students progressed at their own pace using McGuffey readers, Gray's arithmetic, and McGuffey spellers. A student could be a second or third grader, but reading material a grade or two ahead. It could also be the reverse, whereby an older student might be reading a level or two below, depending upon his or her ability and willingness to study. Most of the time, in a one-room school, there was only one teacher who taught the very lessons, kept control of the class, and assisted many students on a daily basis. The Great Western School's enrollment fluctuated over its 82 years of existence. The last class to attend the school had a total of 13 students under the direction of Mrs. Goldie Skaggs, a teacher revered, loved, and respected by all. The Great Western School had grades 1 through 8 until 1936. After that time, students in grades 1 through 4 attended the Lloydsville one-room school, and students in grades 5 through 8 attended the Great Western School. This change was deemed necessary and essential for teaching arithmetic straight grade, whereby it was thought that there would be advantages to having fewer grade levels in order to instruct the math skills to separate grades and not combine them for the arithmetic curriculum. Each grade level had a specific time slot in the day to learn and practice math skills. Stories abound from former students of their education, teachers, the Christmas and end-of-the-year programs, as well as some pranks which were pulled by usually the older boys in the class. Those country school teachers had to have the patience of Job in order to survive a varied age and ability of students. After the school was closed due to the district consolidation program and declining enrollment, the building was used as a meeting place for the local Coon Hunters Club, as well as a venue for local square dances. By 1975, the schoolhouse had fallen in disrepair, having sat empty and abandoned for a number of years. There had even been discussion of transporting the school building across the Ohio University campus to the covered bridge location where a small village was designed, including a log cabin and general store. Under the encouragement and vision of Dr. E.R. Bovenizer, former Dean of Ohio University Belmont, seeing the importance of preserving the Great Western School, he asked National Trail 348 of the International Questers to undertake the school restoration as their bicentennial project. It was after many tireless hours of cleaning, scraping, and physical labor, as well as asking, begging, businesses, companies, civic organizations, and individuals for donations, that the Quester chapter was successful in raising sufficient funds and contacting knowledgeable and talented volunteers in order to restore and preserve the building for the 4th of July celebration in 1976. The chapter members continue to maintain this historic building. The Great Western School has been placed on the National Register of Historic Places and also displays a plaque recognizing the bicentennial of the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. The school was again refurbished in 1986, and a historical document entitled Reflections was produced using 24 of my former students and our daughter from the St. Clairsville-Richland School District. It depicted the story of a country school, particularly the Great Western School. The historical, interpretive, and interactive hands-on educational program, of which we are most proud, was begun by schoolmarm Mrs. Virginia Helms in the spring of 1987, and she worked there till 1992. And Mrs. Bonnie Kochi from 1992 to 2009. Thank you to Jenny Helms for her encouragement and assistance during my schoolmarm experience. This educational program continues today to invite students in grades 1st through college from the states of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio to experience a day reliving the past. Just this spring, we had nearly 600 people join us for this program. The students read from the McGuffey readers, complete their ciphering on slate boards using the lessons from the Ray's arithmetic, and participate in a spelling bee using the words from the McGuffey spellers. They learn the history of the pledge and the flag, as well as some stories of the school itself. The official story of the dunce hat is shared, and each student is given the opportunity to have his or her picture taken wearing the hat. Recitations are encouraged. Period games such as jacks, pick-up sticks, put and take, and marbles are introduced to these students. They also participate with great gusto in some outside games such as leapfrog, drop the handkerchief, tug of war, races, and sack races. Students enjoy eating their lunch on the picnic tables, weather permitting. There are authentic and functional outhouses on the site, which are cleaned on a regular basis, but they do not have a flush. Not only have we welcomed school children, there have been visitors from all over the United States, Canada, Europe, and Asia who have stopped to hear the one-room school stories and the history of the Great Western. Various open houses, bus tours, and homecoming reunions for the former students have also been held at the Great Western School. As I have spent time in the building either doing research or cleaning, I have often wondered if the former students from 152 years ago ever thought that their school would still be standing and being used as an example of what a one-room school must have been like in the late 1800s. There is a great deal more of the history and stories of the Great Western School, which I could share with you, but time is of the essence. I personally would like to once again recognize the two former students who are here today and tell you that I have great respect for you folks who attended a one-room school. The knowledge which was gained during your time in the country school made you productive and very successful law-abiding citizens in the communities in which you lived, utilizing the skills which were taught to you in a one-room school. You folks have been willing to share your expertise, knowledge, and humor with me during the many years which I have done research. You will never know how I appreciated your thoughtfulness and kindness in allowing me to awaken memories of your former school days and the life that you lived as a child and an adult. Special thanks goes to Mr. Winston Grady, who collected and researched information in unbelievable places in order to answer my many questions. It is an honor and privilege to have visited and gotten to know so many of you and your families. What a rewarding experience it has been. I would like to invite all of you to visit the Great Western School this afternoon after this program. As the school marm, I would encourage you to come sit a spell and experience what it must have been like to attend a one-room school. Come see one of Belmont County's gems, which is the only one-room school building in the county that replicates both the appearance and the function of an actual one-room school of 152 years ago. Thank you. I would like to introduce the Fitzsimmons family. They are going to sing School Days, and they have participated in our educational program for a number of years. I'm not sure how many, but so, and join in with them if you know the song. Thank you.
School days, hero golden
So in a moment, I'm going to ask Mr. Gabe Hayes to come forward and share some work he's done for us. But I want to say in advance that, you know, when I came to campus for the first time about a year and a half ago, I pulled into the site. Anybody who's been over there knows we've got this pristine schoolhouse, but it's kind of hidden, right? Because you know, if you followed Ann's talk, you can't see it very well when you're driving by. So trying to enhance two things. One is your ability to see the treasure that's there. I think that's part of it, and Gabe has been part of that. But also, you know, we've got this other historic site there, a tavern, Len's Tavern, as well, and that's not in good repair. So we're talking about ways we can make that whole site available to people, but make it easier to kind of visit both. So that's partly why a kind of a code for me to remind you, if you do want to get more involved, this raffle that some of you have already signed up for, if you haven't, we've got plenty of these cards, is going to be for this framed picture of the schoolhouse. But also, if you want to get more involved, there's some things that I think volunteers can help us do, make the place more available to people. You know, you can have staff, some volunteers there up here, but also to do some restoration work itself. There's a limited amount of things that those of us who don't have a lot of training can do, and we of course raise some money for those who are professionals that have to do some bigger work. So if you want to get involved in any of those ways, this is an opportunity. It's not really listed very clearly there, but you can also write it. You just want to keep up with things. Maybe you can't volunteer or you can't donate or anything like that, but you just kind of want to know what's going on. What's the next thing we're going to do? You can write that in, and we'll try to keep everybody updated. So let me invite Mr. Gabe Hayes forward. He's a landscape architect from the region. We've asked him to come and share some ideas for the future. We may not necessarily do these specific things, but I'm hoping to generate just some additional thinking. What can we do with this space to make it a destination site? I think it already is that way with the schoolhouse, but what else can we do with that space to continue to build on what's already a success? So with that, I'll share it forward.
And thank you all for coming out. I am a planner by day professionally. However, more importantly to this particular site, I grew up here, right? So I'm from Lloydsville, and I grew up at this site with my mother and going to school here, and I've been passionate about it ever since. So in a moment you're going to see up on the screen an image of just a sketch image of some ideas and plans that have come through years of studying of research, and Mr. Winston Brady was a great resource to me as well. He mentioned I got to track down Dr. Pat, about stories too, and anybody else who's attended the school, I would love to hear your memories of the site, not just the school, but of the larger area. So this is just a quick sketch, and I'll mention a few things by pointing, since it's not readable on the screen, but there is copies, small copies of this out on the table as you came in if you want to take a copy, and a large version out on the board as you came in the door. From a historical standpoint, this site is here because of transportation. And that transportation started not with the National Road, but hundreds of years ago. As early as 1,000 years ago, there were Native American sites on the ridge on which this sits. On the campus, the trail would have been right through here, and then ended up right above this site. And that trail, those early Native American trails, are what the Zanes followed when they made Zanes Trace through this area. Then the National Road followed the Route 40, Interstate 70, and so on. So it's very much about transportation and how these places came to be so important. The history of this larger context site was there was a tavern building built here. And that is the building right above the school. The school's here, and the tavern is up above it on the hill. there's an image out in the hall of what it looked like when there was a big shed addition where wagons would have come up and parked under that to have a place to stay for the night as they traveled. The next iteration of the property is that there was an idea to create a community, a town here called Great Western. So the school, and as you had described, is that the one-room schoolhouse, the frame building was across the street. And at the time, all this over here, across National Road, was platted as the town of Great Western. That town never took off. There were a few homes built. According to Grady, there was even a tavern just to the west, another tavern just to the west of the brick house across the street from this historic site. So then moving into the 20th century, this property became an experiment farm, the Belmont County Experiment Farm. And what I found fascinating about this is when I blew up the picture that, I forget the...
Mrs. Giles?
Mrs. Giles.
Giles,
Yeah, who lived here, she gave in a picture, and copies were made. You can see little white sticks everywhere throughout this picture. And those were labels of the plants. You can see every plant had a label. So it was really about showing how to grow things, not just farming, but ornamental plants too. And some of those plants are still out there. If you walk out behind the tavern, there is the biggest ginkgo tree that I've probably ever seen. Not alone the biggest tree, ginkgo tree in Belmont County. There's a few others. So researching this history and talking to Mr. Grady, my former landlord, Henry Fox, went to school here, and talking to Ian about some of the stories of what used to be here, we came up with this sketch of what can happen. And a lot of this is about putting back the landscape that was here during those different eras. For example, the road, the little gravel lane that was here, could be a walkway down to the school. There was also a gravel drive here that was placed after the National Road was raised to become Route 40. I was very excited when Grady told me about a tunnel on a National Road. How many people knew about a tunnel on the National Road here? A couple, right? It's there. And thank you for pointing out about where it's, because I spent probably a half hour searching for it. It is clear across from County Road 84, where the Bonnie Belmont sign is. It's right across the street from that. And it literally is a tunnel across National Road that was built, or underneath National Road, for cows. And for years we thought, how are we going to connect trails someday on unused Ohio University's land over to Belmont County's land? And there it is. So there's potential. It's a fascinating history. There was the schoolhouse, the tavern that became the farm manager. This was the apple barn. There was a pony barn. This outbuilding is in the earliest pictures of the site, still there. Farm manager's site moved over here in the 50s. And then up on the hill was the historic barn, and the farm workers' home was up on the hill. So in this plan, we proposed to use the original drives, the original walks, the original locations to create initially just a place where people can come into the site, park, and walk around, walk down to the one-room school. So there was originally a loop drive as you came in that went towards the tavern. So the idea is to have some parking there, and a walkway down to the school, a walkway around the building. And even if the old tavern building isn't restored yet, we can still interpret that history and talk about the historic site and clean it up and make it an attractive site to experience. And that is the initial goal. The long-term goal would obviously be to find the financial means and the organizational ability to restore the tavern building, restore the apple barn, and even create some wedding sites, wedding venues where the barn used to be. There is some interest growing in the idea of having a farm museum at the Great Western Schoolhouse, because all these farmers have all this historical stuff, and family farms are not passing on like they used to. So there's some interest growing in that idea as well. So I don't know if I'm forgetting anything, but that's just sort of it in a nutshell. I will be around here afterwards and down at the schoolhouse. I really would like to hear the stories of those of you who've been around this site, who went to school here. The whole idea is to restore this and get it active again. So please let us know if you want to be involved, in what capacity you might like to be involved into the future. And I'd be happy to talk more about this when we're done.
Thank you, Dave. That's wonderful. And again, just many opportunities to get involved in many ways. It's one of the unusual things in my life that I've experienced where there's legitimately multiple ways to be involved. You know, a lot of times organizations, they say, really, volunteering is nice, but we really need just money or something like that. This is not one of those. This is like, it's great, yes, we could use money to do these things. We're going to continue to apply for grants and do things like that. But we also, we literally could use some volunteers to get out there and do some of this. And anybody who's been on site, in fact, you can go there over today. I encourage you to look all around and you'll see the great potential that's there, and we hope to do it. We didn't really talk about the covered bridge very much. You mentioned it. I'll just say briefly. It's on the other side of the property. It would be kind of cool to bring them all together. We've been talking a long time. It'd be great to have a trail connecting, you know, this area, right, to that. Anybody been to the school, that covered bridge? You know what I'm talking about? I think that would be ultimately a wonderful little thing to bring everything, literally bring everything together. As we kind of come to the end today, I just want to take a moment and say thanks. First, I want to thank the Belmont Tourism Bureau. They helped a lot today, helping us do this event today. And again, if you go over to the schoolhouse this afternoon, you'll see all the great things we have there. We couldn't have done it without them, so I want to thank them. Of course, we always thank Anne and the Questers, I would say, for all of their hard work that they've done to keep this building alive. It's been great to be here. It's an unusual thing for a college campus to have something like this. So I'm very thankful for them. And they're not here, they're over at the site, but the facility staff on our campuses, all of them are out here working today. This is their day off, but they're going on their way to help us out. I can't call them out here because they're over there on the site ready to accept us here. Danielle Flynn also made this day happen, but again, she's over on the site over there. So one last thing I'll mention is that this is being broadcast live on YouTube. If you're like me, you're probably, anybody who might be online right now is fumbling trying to click, where is that button to get this thing going? The good news is it'll be recorded also on our YouTube website. So if anybody you know wanted to see this, or you think somebody might want to see it, we'll have it recorded, and you can contact any of us and we'll figure out a way to get them onto that YouTube site. So that's available for you as well. So I want to thank everybody for coming out today. It's a pleasure to have you here. And again, this is exciting for me to be able to share this with you. I've been at many different institutions, and I can honestly say I haven't been to one that has the opportunity to connect with history in a way that this campus does, and I'm really happy and proud to be associated with it. So thank you for coming, and I hope to see you over at our site. Before we leave today, we have a special surprise, and if you can come forward. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that I offered one of these pictures to Ann, and she's like, I've got that. She's got everything, especially as it relates to the schoolhouse. I can say with 100% certainty she does not have this bag. It's got Ohio University colors, so that's what we do. And we've got a little swag in there and so forth for her, but most importantly, this card, and you can look at that later. This is a special gift. One of our faculty members is also an artist. His name is Matt Fox. He couldn't be here today, but he made this specifically for Ann for this day. So I wanted to share that with you. Member of our community, so thank you for your service and well-deserved, I would say.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming out, and hope to see you over there.